Began with a small, disorganized protest on Wall Street in Lower Manhattan here in New York, has grown today to demonstrations nationwide against corporate greed, from New York to L.A., even up in Maine.
Why can't Colbert's super PAC co-opt Occupy Wall Street?
New developments in the Occupy SF movement.
Occupy Sacramento.
There was a march on Wall Street today, sponsored by the group Occupy Wall Street.
There's a movement on Wall Street that is gaining momentum by the day.
Occupy Sacramento.
Occupy Wall Street,
which has spread to cities all around the country, causing the media to move its coverage dial from blackout to circus.
What is unique about this protest that has garnered such wide-ranging attention and collective support? How has this one instance of social assembly caused us to reevaluate the way we ingest our material wealth or lack thereof? And how did this movement become a force that would encircle every American? Twitter is where it all began, but it is not the only medium that Occupy would inhabit. Occupy quickly spread to YouTube, Facebook, and innumerable blogs as it was shared and shared again. Finally, by the time most already knew of what was happening, mainstream television began to cover the movement. By this time, other locations had begun to crop up throughout the nation. This led credence to the legitimacy of the protest, and, to some extent, the shallowest commonalities that the protesters shared. Though connected by economic injustice, geographically, hundreds of miles separate some Occupy locations. It is the job of social media to help the groups stay connected and share ideas and suggestions on how to keep each location successful. No one creates structure for others, but they do share tips. One organizer added that the movement has no hierarchical structure, but you can see what works and what doesn't through what cities fall off or maintain. A Tumblr that popped up also began to break the culture of hopeless, self-defeating silence that characterized the Great Depression. When people shared their personal stories and identified with the rest of the 99%, the collective conscience of the movement was strengthened. Even though not everyone was physically protesting, they all had hardships and felt they had been cheated by a common enemy, corporate America. Despite having created a large network on social media sites, organizers within the movement and social media experts say that online tools alone are not enough to sustain.
The importance of having a strong media presence is unquestionable. I mean, we need very powerful, positive media representation.
The online component was critical. The ability to stream video, to capture images, and create records and narratives of sacrifice and resistance was necessary to spur the movement. But it is important to note that the ability to focus on a national agenda will depend on actual, on-the-ground, face-to-face actions, laying your body down for your principles, with the ability to capture the images and project them to the world. Many, emboldened by the countless supporters given to them by the power of blogging, began chanting, "Too big to fail," as a reference to the theory that certain financial institutions are so large and so interconnected that their failure would be disastrous to an economy, and therefore governments have a responsibility to support them when they face difficulty. As the movement took on this new meaning as a champion of the people, it gained supporters but lost focus. While enhanced by the numbers the protests drew, the range of people that began to flood in became too diverse to house in one ideological school. While all seemed to want one thing, the downfall of corporate America, not everyone wanted it the same way, or had prioritized that first. In fact, as time wore on, a real enemy became the U.S. government. Corporations were almost excused as government tax policies came under fire. But then again, corporations could not be excused for their abusive campaign funding. The movement, for all its strength in numbers, began to drown itself in its own noise. No one was moving forward together with a unified political agenda. Instead, they stood together in solidarity, hoping corporate America would fix itself. It was not until recently that demands had even been mentioned as a product of the movement. Even now, they are only in the voting phase of making the demands, and each site has a different set. How will the government respond to these not yet available demands is very unclear. It would appear that the movement needs a leader, yet, given the highly and determinedly democratic nature of the protests, none will presume to step forward.
So it's me. I'm your leader. Let's
He gave
talk
you
about.
fingers down.
Actually, I
Excuse
would
me?
block that one.
You
I would
blocked
block
that
that
one?
one.
I put it up for super consideration,
No good.
and it passed over the stormy seas of your block. Okay? Then, at the last minute, I gave it an executive run through like this, and then I went around your concerns like that, and so I'm the leader.
The idea of a leaderless movement was most likely born out of the democratic nature of the internet environment from which the movement spawned, and which sustains still. Because everyone on the internet has a more or less equal presence, it would make sense that a leaderless movement centered on discussion would be produced. But with no leader, the direction of the movement is bound to splinter, or the ideas will never become anything more substantial than we are the 99%. The typical organization is hierarchical for a reason. The value of such hierarchies is obvious. It vastly simplifies communication among the employees. New employees need only one connection to their boss to get started. That's much simpler than trying to have everyone talk to everyone, because then you have something like Occupy.